Hello and welcome to our session covering desktop gadgets. My name is James Yum and I'm an engineer with the Google Desktop team in Mountain View. I'm very excited to be here today to talk about a topic that is getting more and more attention. Desktop gadgets, also known as desktop widgets. I'm sure that after this talk, you'll know more about desktop gadgets, and you'll agree with me that they are very cool and exciting. There will also be a quick introduction to gadget development so that you can go ahead and start writing your own gadgets. So what's the big fuss about gadgets? As you can see from the above quotes, recently a lot of people have took notice of an emerging trend. Individual developers, large companies, and content providers are starting to evaluate the opportunities offered by gadgets and ways they can improve our digital lives. And of course, gadgets get a lot of attention because users like them. They like how gadgets can be tailored to specific preferences and needs. We've seen this with cars and cellular phones. People like customizing their stuff and making it their own. Newsweek, which is a popular news magazine in the United States, went as far as proclaiming 2007 the year of the gadget, emphasizing that a lot of interesting content out there is waiting for better ways to be delivered. Now, I told you everyone is talking about gadgets. Let's see what a desktop gadget is and what can be done with them. Looking at the agenda, we'll start with a quick introduction to desktop gadgets, after which we'll discuss some of the benefits of developing and using a Google Desktop gadget. Then we'll look at some gadget internals and the steps involved in building a simple gadget. We'll show you how you can take advantage of advanced APIs unique to the Google Desktop platform. And we'll finish with pointers to gadget developer resources and some key takeaways. So coming back to our presentation, what exactly is a gadget, and in particular, what is a desktop gadget? The generic definition is a gadget is a specialized mini application that runs in the web page or on the desktop. Here at Google, we have two types of gadgets: universal gadgets and desktop gadgets. Both have simple programming models, and both are easy to develop for, but there are key differences. A universal gadget runs in the web page, runs in the browser, so there's no downloads necessary, and requires an online connection. A desktop gadget requires that you have Google Desktop Search installed. It offers advanced functionality. It can work offline. And instead of using HTML and JavaScript, it uses XML and JavaScript. For the rest of this presentation, we'll focus on desktop gadgets. And I will refer to them simply as gadgets. So next, I'll do a brief demo of Google Desktop gadgets. I'll present some popular gadgets and features that our users really like. So this is Google Desktop Sidebar. It's a window within which you can dock your gadgets. And here's an example of some popular gadgets. This is a battery meter that shows the amount of battery life remaining on my laptop battery. This is a weather gadget. It shows the weather forecast in Tokyo right now. And this gadget is a bit more advanced because if you notice, if you dock it or undock it, it changes the UI. Now, this is a little known feature, but if you press the Shift key 2 times in a row, it'll bring up all the gadgets that are undocked. So here's an example of some gadgets. This is a Magic 8-Ball gadget. I'll ask you the question right now. Do you think it will rain today? And the reply is negative. So I don't think it'll rain today. Here's a flower pot, and I'm gonna give it a little water. This is an astrology gadget, which shows today's horoscope. And these two gadgets are written by Japanese developers, and they're among the most popular gadgets among our team. When they were submitted, we couldn't stop talking about them. This is a noodle timer to help you remind you of when your noodles will be cooked. And this is a clock from the same developer. Also, games are very popular and showcase the advanced graphical capabilities of gadgets. Here's a reverse side game. And you can do things such as minimize the gadget and expand it. And in order to add a gadget, there's a dialog that you can open up, and you could search for gadgets within this dialog. Almost all the gadgets are added through this process. And another thing I'd like to show you, there's a section called recommendations. And here Google Desktop attempts to match gadgets with users likely to use them. So Google Desktop examines the user's profile and it builds a profile of the user. And builds a list of recommended gadgets. Okay, so that's it for the demo. So let's go back to the presentation. As a developer, you may ask yourself, why should I develop a gadget? What's in it for me? Well, one compelling reason is the target audience is huge. You can reach millions of users who have Google Desktop installed and who, as we speak, are running gadgets written by developers just like you. At the same time, gadgets are an excellent way to distribute your content. You can ensure a permanent presence on the user's desktop while pushing content to users in real time. Additionally, a large user base can translate into increased traffic to your site. But the reasons don't stop there. Users love gadgets because they enable them to do new things. From the user's perspective, Google Desktop gadgets have unique and compelling benefits. First, desktop gadgets offer a feature-rich UI experience. You can implement gadgets with advanced UI capabilities, which take advantage of features such as transparency, zooming, rotation, and drag and drop. Second, you can implement gadgets that users can use to interact with each other. Our API offers capabilities for two-way communication, and the most common typical use of this is to create multiplayer games. Third, users are looking for gadgets that could present them with useful and specific information from the web or local system. For example, there are notification gadgets which will check eBay or Amazon daily and look for good deals. Actually, I have a kind of funny story to tell. One developer on our team, well, the Nintendo Wii is really hard to find in the US. It's almost impossible to purchase. So a developer on our team created a gadget that would check online stores and check for the availability of Nintendo Wii. And he was able to manage to procure 5 Nintendo Wiis using this gadget. But unfortunately, he won't share it with us. Some advanced gadgets use audio and video streaming. And there are also gadgets that show local machine stats, such as CPU usage or network load. Furthermore, with desktop gadgets, you can easily personalize and customize the user experience. The gadget runs on the desktop and has access to the history, the user's history and preferences. So an example of this would be to write an RSS gadget that would monitor which websites that the user is visiting. And it will automatically add feeds to the gadget with no effort on behalf of the user. Another example of this would be if you create a weather gadget, and again, you would monitor the user's actions and add new locations automatically to the weather gadget. Now that we've established that users will love your gadgets, let's see what it takes to implement one and look at some of the gadget internals. First thing you should know is a gadget is in fact a zip archive with a .gg extension. So if you're curious and want to see what's inside the gadget, you will rename the extension to .zip and unzip it, and you can look at all the contents of a gadget. What files should we look at first? Well, there are 4 main types of files. The XML files generally describe the UI elements of a gadget. All gadgets must have a main.xml. The JavaScript files contain the code necessary to add dynamic behavior to the gadget. And all gadgets must have a manifest file. It's a simple XML file containing author metadata, such as the author name, email, website, and also information about the gadget, such as a name or description. And the rest of the gadget package can contain resources, such as strings, images, media files. So if you look at that diagram, that's the basic layout of the gadget package. If you look at the section called localized strings, you'll notice that there are subdirectories which correspond to different languages based on the ISO language code. So for example, EN is where you would put all your languages for English, your resources for English, and JA would be for Japanese. So let's take a look at some code. So this is the first component I like to talk about in a gadget. It's main.xml. And here, the top level element is called view. And now that we specify width and height. And this code also creates a text label. And then there's a handler. When the label is clicked, it specifies a handler called onTextClick. And it's also positioned at the coordinates, x coordinate 0, y coordinate 60. So one difference between HTML and writing a desktop gadget is elements are absolutely positioned. So for example, the label would be positioned at 060. So this is an example of a JavaScript file for a Hello World gadget. So when the text label that we saw before, when the user clicks on that label, it'll execute this code, and it'll pop up an alert with the text, "Hello, developers." Also, I like to talk about internationalization. We recommend that you store all your strings in a file called strings.xml. And that way, the Google Desktop Gadget platform will automatically handle internationalization. So Google Desktop is translated into 29 different languages. And depending on the version, the locale version of Google Desktop you have installed, it will use the appropriate strings.xml file. And here's a simple example of the manifest file. So after you have all those, after you finish your gadget, you can just zip it and ship it. And then create a .gg file and you can execute this file, and it will run your gadget if you have Google Desktop installed. We have a tool called the Google Desktop Gadget Designer. It's included free in the SDK. It's a visual designer with a what you see is what you get interface. It enables you to quickly prototype and preview your gadget all within the same program. As a bonus, it will also generate the .gg package for you. So let me show you a quick demo of the designer. So I'm going to create a new project. And as you see, it automatically creates the files for you. It creates the default icons, a JavaScript file, and a main.xml file. You can edit your JavaScript files with a text editor. But if you double-click on the main.xml, it enters a visual editor mode. And here you see different UI objects that are available to you. And you could simply click and drag them onto the gadget. And let me create a quick, simple gadget for you. So once you click on an element, the properties pane opens up and lists the available properties for that UI object. So here I'm making the label bold. I'm going to change the cursor when hovered to a hand. I'm enabling it to receive events. I'm going to change the text to say click me. And I'm going to set on-click handler. As you can see, there are a lot of properties available, so it's very useful when you're learning and starting out to use the designer. As you can see, the properties that you can use. Now I'm going to define the on-click handler. And have it pop up an alert message that says, "That tickles." And we're done. So let me try it again. It works. But anyways, yeah, so, I mean, if you're starting out, I highly recommend that you use the designer just as a learning tool. And then if you decide, you can make a decision whether you like it or not, and you could go back to using VI or Emacs or your favorite editor. Okay, now I'd like to talk about some advanced APIs. And these APIs are unique to Google Desktop, and I feel that if you take advantage of them, it'll really set your gadgets apart. There's a communication API that allows for inter-gadget communication. You can send and receive data to gadgets on other machines running the same gadget. You can use this API to create multi-user games, broadcast messages to your friends, or even create a social networking type gadget where you can keep status of your friends, and send them messages. And let me show you a quick demo of a multiplayer game. So this is a chess gadget written by one of our top developers. And here you see a list of friends, and by some amazing coincidence, one of my friends is online. And so let me ask him if he'd like to play chess. And it's asking me, do I want to play with the white pieces? I'm saying yes. So this is my friend in Mountain View, and right now, in real time, we're playing a game of chess. And we're going to sit here until the game is over. And so we'll continue this game later. At another time. So here's a code example that shows how to use a communication API. This code snippet retrieves your list of friends, and it iterates through them and sends each of them a message if they are online at the moment. Now on the receiving side, you simply set up a handler, and it will receive incoming data, and you can process it however you wish. The next API I'd like to talk about is the Query API. You can easily use Google Desktop to programmatically query the Google Desktop index. Example of this is gadgets that query the index for all music files on the user's machine. So the one on the right is a touring gadget. So I think this is a pretty creative gadget because it'll search for all the artists stored on the user's machine, and then check a web-based API and search for upcoming tours in the user's area. And let me show you another demo of a gadget. This one is called GD Music. And this gadget uses the Query API to query for music files on the user's machine. You can type things such as genre. So I'm searching for jazz. Or you could search by artist. Song title. And the thing I'd like to point out is the queries are pretty fast, and it's searching all the files on my computer. Here's a code snippet demonstrating the use of the Query API. Here I'm querying for the search term Beatles. And if I execute a query, it will return all results for all files that match the term Beatles. So there's some logic in there to filter out for the result type media file. And once you have a result, you're able to extract information such as artist, album title, or genre. The final API I'd like to discuss is the Event API. Google Desktop can notify your gadget of user actions, such as browsing the web, creating a new email, or a new IM chat. You can set your program to register for and listen for these events. And here's some example code. It's a little longer than the other examples, but I still think it's pretty easy to use. So this sample registers to be notified of new web page actions. So if the user browses a new web page, your gadget will be notified of the web page URL and in the shortened version of the content. And so I have one more demo, but this gadget is this is a bit of a sneak preview because this gadget has not yet been released. It should be released early next week. The name of this gadget is Buddies in Sync. Oops. So this is an avatar that represents the user. Right now it says, I am working. But it's not smart enough to figure out that I'm giving a talk at Google Developer Day, but that's OK. So as you see, I opened up a web page. And the gadget, in real time, reacted to this event. Now it says, I am browsing the internet. This gadget also reacts when you open a new music file, play video games, or if you're watching a movie. Then this information is shared with your friends who are running the same gadget. So you can keep track of what your friends are doing, and they could keep track of you. And hopefully they really are your friends. OK, we're almost done. So I'd like to go over some of the developer resources we have available. Okay, the first link is our main developer site. That contains links to all the other links you see below it. We have quite an active forum, which is our Desktop Gadgets developer group. And Google Desktop engineers are answering posts and monitoring new posts on that group. We also have a FAQ knowledge base. We have in-depth articles. And the engineers like to post on the blog and give tips to developers on how to improve their gadgets and developer news. Lastly, we at Google love open source. So we've open sourced our most popular gadgets. And we plan on hopefully open sourcing all of them. So another thing is if you're starting to learn, it's worth it to check out those open source gadgets and learn from the code because it's freely available. So you implement a gadget, now what? First thing you should do is submit your gadget to Google to reach more users. Once your gadget is approved, it will be added to a directory. And when users go to add gadgets, it will show up in their searches or in the listings. And as mentioned earlier, gadgets are automatically targeted and recommended to users who are most likely to use them. And finally, if you write enough popular gadgets, you'll have a chance to make it into our Developers Hall of Fame. So what is the Developers Hall of Fame? Well, it's the list of our top developers, and the ranking is determined by number of gadgets written and the popularity of those gadgets. And one thing I like to point out is almost all of these developers are international or outside of the US. Now, making this list has helped the lives of the developers tremendously. Some of them have gotten good job offers or helped them enter top schools. So I'd like to take a second to acknowledge the efforts of these developers. Finally, I want to end this presentation with a few key takeaways. First, as predicted by many people, 2007 may turn out to be the year of the gadget. Specialized mini applications are taking over the browser and desktop, are becoming access points to information. There's a lot of content out there and standardized APIs to access it, and we have lots of users eager to get this content in a simple and useful manner. Now, what makes Google Desktop Gadgets so appealing? First, the programming model is very simple, but powerful. With minimal knowledge of JavaScript and XML, you can write really impressive gadgets. And I personally find that this frees you up to focus on higher level things, such as the architecture of your gadget, and put more effort into design. Second, users find Google Desktop Gadgets very easy to work with. It's very easy to add and remove gadgets. Users also like Google Desktop Gadgets because they offer advanced functionality and better interaction with the rest of the system. Additionally, there's a little known fact, but I believe that our gadget platform is very resource friendly compared to others. Now, I don't know that as a fact, but our gadgets have low system requirements, and your users will appreciate this fact. Another good reason to develop with Google Desktop Gadgets are the advanced APIs that are unique to the platform. This is where you can use the advanced APIs to develop really creative and innovative applications. Now let me summarize why gadget developers should consider showcasing their gadgets with Google Desktop. You can reach millions of users around the world, and Google Desktop will recommend gadgets to users most likely to use them. It will target your gadget. It will distribute your content and increase traffic to your site. And lastly, you can become famous as a top gadget developer. And I'd like to just describe my own experience with gadgets. When I started writing gadgets for Google, it took me about a month to become very proficient writing gadgets. But since then, I write gadgets all day and night, and I'm always thinking about new gadgets to write. I've become really passionate about it. So I hope some of you may try writing gadgets and see if you have as much fun as I do. And that's the end of this talk. We're going to start our Q&A session. So any questions?
ですね。
Yes, my question is that can we call and access to the Windows API from gadgets?
But you will have to write an ActiveX object. If maybe C++ is the most common language that's used to do it. But we have something called a hybrid gadget, where most of the UI and most of the functionality is written with JavaScript and XML. But you can create a special type of ActiveX DLL and implement your system calls in that DLL. And it's very easy to use. All you do is simply edit the manifest file and create a reference to that DLL. And you'll be able to create that object within JavaScript and execute methods or do whatever you want. The example of this is in the SDK. And there's documentation also online. Some people have actually written really impressive gadgets doing this. I've seen like volume controls. That Buddies in Sync gadget is a hybrid gadget. So yeah, anything is possible with this platform if you have the expertise and knowledge to write Windows system code.
それともう一つ、
I have one more. So you can call the Windows API. That means the gadget has some kind of security in it.
I mean, you should consider them desktop applications. So there's no, I mean, security is a major concern, and we are doing things to make gadgets more secure. But you do have unlimited power, so to say. So you can do anything you would want, what you could do in a regular, traditional desktop application.
ありがとうございました。
Thank you very much.
Yes. Other than the JavaScript, for example, Python or that kind of the language will be supported in the future, other than the JavaScript?
I don't know of any plans at this time. Actually, there is VB script support, but it's rarely used by developers.
Just wanted to the platform is available for OSs other than Windows, Linux, or Mac, or if there are any plans to make it available?
There was, when Google Desktop for Mac was released, there was mention that they will port the Gadgets platform to the Mac. I don't know any details of how that project's going or any kind of timeline, but that's all I know about porting the platform to other OSs or.
Yeah, and you mentioned earlier that you just played the chess on the screen, but that communication actually was going via some of the Google server, or it just communication would be done, and the direct communication between the clients to clients, or that would go via some of the Google server.
Of Google Talk, which is our instant messaging product. So it uses Google Talk, and then so it goes through Google servers. Oh, so yeah, so one thing is you do need to be running Google Talk for these gadgets to work. I mean, your users need to have Google Talk installed and running. Okay, thank you very much. I'll be out in the lobby if you want to ask me any questions. And have a nice day and have fun.